Hello. So this is just going to be an unscripted video. An unscripted video I wanted to do because recently a game was released called Palworld. Now, Palworld is a monster collection game where you have to essentially. I mean, it's a monster collection game, but the difference is you're able to fight the monsters yourself. They're called pals, but you're able to fight the pals yourself, and that often includes using weapons, including realistic guns. Now, it's an interesting concept, not my kind of thing, but I can see how a lot of people would be into this. And the issue comes when you actually look at the designs, because the designs seem very much like they have been kind of copied from Pokemon. And by that, well, firstly, I'm talking entirely speculatively. We don't know that this is the case. We don't know that they have copied anything. There are suspicions because the developers use AI in a lot of their stuff, or have seemed to be used AI a lot of the time. There are suspicions that they have put a lot of Pokemon designs into into AI image generators. And have essentially come up with designs based on that. Not necessarily entirely, but a lot of them do seem like that, which obviously is not good. So I wanted to go through each of these designs and just kind of have a look, see if I can identify whether there has been any sort of foul play here in terms of using Pokemon designs in order to make the PAL designs. Any of that, copying business has that occurred? And if so, what the potential elements they have copied from have been. This is going to be kind of like my Temtem video, except I'm not going to be doing it based on my first reaction. I've seen most of them already. I've already seen what some people have been speculating about some of the pals, about what their origins could be. I have some ideas of my own on some of them, and that's kind of what I want to talk about a lot here. So I will be talking. As I said, I'll be kind of going through each one and saying what are the similarities to Pokemon that they could have potentially copied. I'm not going to be ranking them like I did in my Temtem video. In that video, I was trying to see if the PAL design, if the Temtem designs actually stood up to the design standard of Pokemon. And in this case, I already don't like Palworld because of everything that surrounds it. So it wouldn't be fair for me, because while there are some designs I know that I like, I would be ranking. I'd probably rank a lot of them down based on the fact that I don't really want to, compliment this game too much, because I think that what they're doing is pretty shady, pretty not okay. But yeah, with that said, I'm going to go straight into it. So the first one we have is Lamball. Now, Lamball is basically a ball lamb. And if that concept sounds familiar, it's probably because of the fact that Wooloo did it first. It feels fairly obvious to me, and anyone else really, that this is a copy of Wooloo. Wooloo being a lamb that was a ball is a fairly original concept anyway. And so them doing the exact same thing after Pokemon did it is very suspect. It does distinguish itself in some ways. It's a biped, whereas Wooloo is a quadruped. But I think that the quote-unquote inspiration is clear, especially when you look at those ears, even the horns. It just very much feels like they copied Wooloo here. Next, we have Cativa, or Cativa, I don't know how you say that. I initially thought that it was very Meowthy. but on actually comparing them side to side, it's kind of obvious that then that's not, actually the comparison. Caterpillar is kind of its own original thing. It's just a cat, a cute bipedal cat. Those aren't exactly uncommon in creature collection games, and this doesn't look like it copies anything. The whiskers look familiar to me, and I could see if you kind of told me, okay, there's Jigglypuff elements in the face, but I don't think there's anything in that. Chickpea is just kind of a generic chicken design. It doesn't really stand out much. It also doesn't seem like it's copying from Pokemon or anything really. It's just generic, is all I can really say about that one. Lifmunk. Lifmunk, I initially thought kind of had Leafeon elements, but on comparing them side to side, that's not a copy at all. The ear with the kind of piece taken out of it kind of reminds me of Bayleaf's leaf, but that's not anything that you could really say they're copying. That's again, that's just an element that leaves have sometimes, and So yeah, this one, if this was in any other creature collection game, I wouldn't even think about it being a copy of anything. It looks original. Foxbarks is, again, kind of generic. If you told me it was meant to be based on whatever the Guy Fawkes Fox Pokemon from Gen 8 is, I kind of believe you, but I also think, there's nothing here that would, strongly suggest that. To me, it just seems to be it's just a fox, a firefox. Firefoxes are not that original concept. It's actually quite a popular concept, and Pokemon itself has several, so that's fine. Thwack, again, looks original. It's a duck, but it doesn't seem like it's copying from any specific duck Pokemon. It's just a duck, really. Sparkit. Sparkit is, again, looks original. I don't like the whiskers in the 3D model. It kind of looks weird, but I can't say that this looks like it's copying any Pokemon specifically. Again, it's original. It's a fine design. Tansy. I could imagine a lot of people would think, oh, it's a grass monkey. We've got two of those in Pokemon. Well, exactly. We've got two of those in Pokemon. It's, again, not a particularly, it's not particularly creative idea. I mean, it is. In that, I don't know. I think a grass monkey is something that I would expect people to, or a game like this to have done, really. And it doesn't look particularly like any of the monkey Pokemon we have. The ears kind of look like Pansage, but then that's just because it's got big monkey ears, which, again, isn't a concept that Pokemon invented. I also thought maybe Apom, but then I looked at it and Apom really doesn't have much detail on its face, so that's not it. Ruby. This one's fairly original. I'm not sure what it's supposed to be, kind of like a foxy kind of thing, but not foxy, sorry, a deer kind of thing. But yeah, it feels original. It doesn't feel like anything specific. It might look like a Temtem, but I can't remember which one, and I'm not going to go look that up. So yeah, I think this one seems fairly original. But yeah. Pengullet. We've only got 3 penguin Pokemon: Delibird, Ice-Cube, and Piplup. And frankly, this doesn't look like any of them. Again, it's a cartoon penguin. This is, and again, when this game isn't doing, isn't using Pokemon designs, it actually has some pretty decent designs, and this is one of them. I think it's a cute design. I like it well enough. Doesn't seem to be a copy. It's good. Next we have Penking, and again, doesn't really feel like it copies from Pokemon. Actually, it was quite funny when I first looked at it. It looked like it had a kind of ice climber vibe to it, with the thing around its neck, like the bit around the hood of the ice climber's coat, which I thought was pretty funny. But yeah, this isn't a Pokemon copy as far as I can tell. Jolthog. Now, Jolthog, if you told me that this was Shaman, I can kind of see Shaman in the face. I'm not gonna lie, and the general body shape. It also looks like it's got Jolteon quills. However, I'm going to be honest, I don't know if either of those elements are enough to say that this wouldn't be original. If you told me this was originally made and it was just meant to be an electric hedgehog, yeah, I mean, I would believe you. Gumos. Not much really here. I think it's a decent design. It's a kind of cute design. Like, the most I could say is like something like Ditto, really. You can kind of see it in the face, but I mean, Ditto's whole thing is that it has a very generic blank face. So something else doing that isn't necessarily the biggest deal in the world. Maybe more so when it's with a very blobby creature, but Gumos has a lot of stuff about it which distinguishes it quite harshly from Ditto, or any Pokemon really. So yeah, I wouldn't say that there's much here. Vixie. The face looks familiar and I'm not sure where from. I haven't been able to work that out. The bits on the side of the head, they do look kind of like Lucario. General body shape, you could say maybe Eevee. If I'm honest, I don't think anything here is conclusive enough. I think that this feels original to me. So if it was in another game, I wouldn't even question it. Hoocrates. Again, I could kind of see it if you like. It's a bird with a hat on, and that kind of gives me Honchkrow vibes, Murkrow Honchkrow vibes, and it being dark type as well. That definitely feels sort of suspect, but really, I don't think there's anything there. I think it is original. Teefant. Now, Teefant, I think now this to me reminds me of when Sword and Shield hadn't released, and we knew that we were going to get an elephant Pokemon. We hadn't seen it, or might have seen it like a very far off image. And so with this, like when that happened, I think a lot of people assumed that our elephant Pokemon was going to be based on a teapot. And so, my guess is that this is based on that. However, there's nothing wrong with that, because it's something that people have have said that they thought it was going to be in Pokemon. It didn't end up being in Pokemon, but it has kind of something. It seems to me like they have thought, okay, well, that seems like a pretty cool idea, we might as well make that. And that's fine. I think that's fine, doing that. It also could have been an original idea, because, the idea of an elephant teapot actually kind of makes sense when you think about it. But either way, no harm here, I think. Depresso is definitely Esper. You can say like the general body shape is the same, including the quite oversized head. But what really sells me on this is the ears. It looks like it's kind of a very cat-like design, but it's got those floppy down ears, which isn't something you normally see in cat designs, because cats don't tend to have floppy down ears. And yet Esper has that, and there's a reason that Esper has that. But this one also has that. And I can't help but think that that's because they copied Esper. I can't help but think that. So, yeah, this one definitely gives me Esper vibes. Cremis. My first reaction on seeing this was, oh my god, they actually just shamelessly copied Eevee. And there are differences, but it does feel very, very Eevee-like. I'm going to be honest, especially when you look at that face. It's got the Eevee. It's got the Eevee vibe. It really does. And this will become relevant in a minute as well. But I just can't not see Eevee in this one. And you've even got the kind of Gigantamax Eevee kind of thing with the puffy bit around the neck, which again could be a coincidence, but I don't think so in this case. Daydream feels original. I can't pinpoint anything here that actually looks like I can't pinpoint anything that looks like a Pokemon. It feels original to me. Rushaw. So this one looks fairly original. The only thing that you could potentially say is that the bits kind of around the base of the head kind of look like Zigzagoon's fur, but that's a stretch, honestly. This feels original. And off the back of Cremis, we're going to talk about Nox, because it can't be a coincidence to, like, there are two pals that look so much like Eevee. Like, this one's got the Eevee tail, it's got the Eevee ears. Yeah, it really... It even has the tufts on the top of the head. It doesn't feel coincidence to me that this looks so much like Eevee. And you could say maybe that's because Eevee is a fairly generic, design. But I think my argument against that would be, you don't get something that looks this much like Eevee in any, in like Temtem or Yokai Watch or Digimon. You don't get any creatures that look this much like Eevee, and it certainly doesn't happen twice. So, to me, this is just kind of a very clear indication. Eevee is the second most popular Pokemon, or the second mascot, I should say. Of course, if they're going to be copying, they're going to be copying from that. And it just feels like, yeah, that's got to be what they've done here. Fuddler looks like a mole, feels fairly original. I originally thought maybe it had Drillbur elements, but actually comparing them side to side, they're nothing alike. So, yeah, Fuddler is fine. Killamari was a very funny one, because I looked at it and I thought, that is an original design. And you know what? I really like it. It's a really cool design. And then I saw the ears and I thought, hold on, those look familiar. And the reason they looked familiar was because I'd been looking at them maybe just a few minutes earlier when I was looking at Esper. And yeah, it has Esper's ears. And at first I thought, well, that's a crazy coincidence. I'm sure that wouldn't be the case. But then I looked a little harder, and it has the same colour scheme. This kind of lavender colour. It's very, very close in terms of colour scheme. But the part that convinced me more than anything was then I saw the eyes. Oh my lord, that is the same eyes. Like, not even, it looks very similar. No, those are the same eyes. It literally has Esper's eyes. I don't... like, a lot of people have brought up a lot of pals as the one that would, convince everyone that these have been copied. For me, it's Killamari, because that is three elements that are awfully specific to Esper, and it somehow has them. And what's frustrating more than anything, actually, here, is the fact that this could be a really cool design on its own if they hadn't copied if they hadn't copied those elements. Like, the eyes didn't need to be the same. The ears, they didn't need to be the same. The colour did not need to be the... These elements didn't need to be the same, and if they weren't, this would be an excellent design. But they are. You can't even deny this. It's so clearly based on Esper. They've just made it a squid, which is a weird combination, but I don't know. Mao is fine. I'm not too keen on the design. It's a bit generic. But it doesn't seem to be copied from anything. I could see it, I could see people saying it's got Umbreon in it, but that's just because they're both based on cats, really, and they both have golden elements to them. But, a black cat is a fairly generic thing anyway. And having gold, on a black creature feels like a fairly generic thing as well. So I don't really see this one as being any sort of copy. Celery, I initially thought kind of had Mantike in it, especially those weird antenna things on its head. But in the end, I think I came to the conclusion that no, there isn't anything there. It feels fairly unique to me. Dire Howl is one of the examples I have seen brought up the most. And I think that's a mistake. And the reason I think it's a mistake is because it, like, I definitely think this one's been copied because of the fluff behind the neck, which definitely feels like it was copied from Lycan Rock. But like, that's the only element, and there's plausible deniability there, basically. And everything else is just generic wolf. And I don't think that this is the best one to be making a case on. Toko is a fairly egregious one. It's Xatu, like, and it comes down to the fact that they're both birds, and they're both, you know, they both have the same color scheme. And sure, it's a different type of bird. It's very much chicken here. But like, that color scheme is so specific. It's so specific. Now, I don't know much about, I think that Xatu is based on Native American culture. I don't know much about Native American culture. Maybe these colors have some specific, you know, relevance within Native American culture. If so, then sure, that's fine. Otherwise, though, I think it's fairly obvious that they wanted to make something that, you know, was reminiscent of Xatu. It just doesn't feel... It doesn't feel logical to me that it wouldn't be. Floppy or Floppy, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but I'm going to say Floppy because Floppy makes more phonetic sense. This one took me a while. I knew I recognised it. I knew I had seen that head before, that kind of head shape before, and it took me a while. It's Tinkaton. Those bits on the side, those long bits on the side that are kind of drooping down, that's on Tinkaton's head. And there's other elements as well that kind of are reminiscent of Tinkaton. Both of them have a very similar body shape for a start. Both have this kind of fringe thing going on. And Floppy has ears on the top of its head, which isn't similar to Tinkaton, but it should be noted that Tinkaton does have kind of tufts, you know, going up on its head in a kind of a similar fashion. And it's to the point where it does have a very similar silhouette to Tinkaton. The one thing that I will say about this is that I don't know when the PALs were made, when they were created, so it could be that this design predates Tinkaton, in which case, fair enough. But Scarlet Violet was made a year ago. I could believe that this was made within that year. And if so, it just feels very Tinkaton to me. Mozzarina, at first, I just thought, that's a cow. Okay, doesn't look like Miltank. That's fair enough. Then I looked at the face and I was like, okay, they got Snorlax's face. And I'm not sure why they've done this. For fairness, there are differences. The fangs on this one are going downwards. Meanwhile, for Snorlax, they're going upwards. And that is a notable difference, I think. I could also see it if this was meant to be based on some sort of devil cow, but it doesn't seem like there's enough there. I don't know why you'd give a cow fangs, especially one that seems to be asleep as well. It just doesn't seem logical to me. Nothing about its inspiration seems to support the decision to, you know, make it have fangs, other than the fact that if they based it on Snorlax. The fact that it seems to be sleeping, the fact that it's fat, it just kind of all adds up to the fact that I think that they definitely, I mean, again, I'm speculating here, but it feels to me like they took the face from Snorlax and put it on this one. It doesn't even really feel like it fits on this PAL. It just, I just can't stop seeing it. Bristler at first confused me because, again, I recognised it, wasn't sure where from, and then I scrolled down a bit on the wiki page, which I used to look at all of them, and I saw that it said, oh, this resembles Gossifleur. And it does. But I think it is different enough that you could deny it, and I don't think there's much that you can say about it. It does have a very similar colour scheme. It's got the red hair, it's got, well, green face, red hair, yellow flower on the top. Although it seems to be more of a crown here, I'm not sure. There are differences. The flower is a lot bigger on Gossifleur. I'm not going to say that I'm convinced at all. I'm not going to say I'm convinced at all that this isn't copied from Gossifleur in some way. But I also understand that there's not enough there, I don't think, to say that it is definitely the case. Next is Gobfin, and I like this one. I really like this one. It's got a lot of character. It's got a unique design. Doesn't feel like it's copying a Pokemon. Yeah, I think the Gobfin is pretty great, and it's frustrating because these are the kinds of things that I wish were in Pokemon. Not that I wish it were in Pokemon, but like, I wish I could like this game because it's got stuff like this in it. But unfortunately, so much of the rest of it is just really awful in terms of seemingly stealing content, and it just sours the whole thing. Hangyu, I remember people saying at first seemed very similar to a Fakemon that had been made. I think it's been established since that actually that Fakemon was created after Hangyu was revealed. So, okay, fair enough. The face definitely looks like Chimecho though. That is hard to deny. But yeah, again, I don't think there's enough here to be able to say for sure that this is, a copy of Chimecho. I mean, the rest of it is original, and that I think is worth noting. Masanda, other than having a terrible name, is fine. Like, it doesn't look like Pangoro or any other Pokemon for that matter. The only thing I can think of there is, I can't remember its name. There is a Temtem that looks kind of like this. It's kind of a green, just kind of a green, not blob, but it looks like Masanda's head basically, right down to having the leaf on its head. I don't necessarily know if there's anything in that, because I don't know if they would have used Temtem designs at all. There's a couple that look like they could, but I don't think there's anything conclusive. So, yeah, this one seems fine. Woollypop was, it feels fairly unique. Again, I'm not sure if it's meant to be a dog or a sheep. I think it's a sheep. But if it's a sheep, that actually demonstrates the point, because it feels unique. Compared to Lamball, it feels unique. It doesn't feel like they have copied anything. It's just they made a sheep, and that's a cotton candy sheep, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I think this was fine. Caprati also it feels original. The most you could potentially say is Go-Go. Like, that's a stretch if you do, though. Grass Goat isn't. That's not a concept that Pokemon has the entire rights to, and this looks completely distinct from Go-Go as well. I think that this one is also a unique one. Same goes for Melpaca. Melpaca is just an alpaca. It doesn't feel unique because it just looks like an alpaca, but it doesn't feel like it's copying anything. It's just an alpaca. I don't know how to say this one, but Eek the Deer, I like this one as well. Feels original. Not only does it feel original, it's got a great design. Love the colour scheme. The antlers look gorgeous. I think that this really stands out as a very good design. Nightwing. This one is a bird. I'm not going to say that it looks like Breviary, because, Breviary already feels like a fairly generic bird anyway. I don't really see anything that is especially, copying Breviary or any bird Pokemon, really. It feels like its own thing. It's just a bird. I feel like birds are something that they don't really need to copy for, because a lot of them, it's easy to make a good bird design that's unique, Ribbunny, this one feels like it has Sylveon elements, especially the kind of ribbon thing that it's got going on, that long ribbon thing. I also kind of get Emolga vibes. I'm not sure why. I would say this definitely draws from different elements of different Pokemon. Nothing that, like, no one thing for sure. I think this is a mix, and that's why people think that they've used AI generation to fuse Pokemon. And I could see if you were fusing a few different Pokemon, maybe some sort of bunny Pokemon with Sylveon and Emolga, I could definitely see how you'd get this. Incineram initially kinda looked like Zoroark to me, with a bit of Houndoom in there, but realistically, this just uses different elements that are you typically see in I guess it's got horns, it's got ribs, I guess. It's got a black and red color scheme. These aren't things that are copying Pokemon. These are things that feel like they come together to make something that is unique. And it feels like they could have come to this design without actually, using any Pokemon designs. I feel like that's what this would be. This one feels original. Cinemoth doesn't feel like it's copying anything. It's this feels original. Not much to say. It doesn't look like any butterfly or moth Pokemon that we have. The body, again, just feels like its own kind of little creature thing. Yeah, this is original to me. Arsox just kind of looks like a fire ram. Yeah, there's nothing here that really looks like it's copying Pokemon or anything that I can think of really. A ram with fire powers just feels like something you could naturally come to as a concept. So with Dumud or Dumud, I mean, that's Sobble's Fin. There's no two ways about it. They're almost an exact match. I don't I don't see how anyone could justify that isn't Sobble's Fin. It also has some very strong Clodsire vibes. Actually, especially with the colour scheme. Not an exact colour scheme, but it does feel like it's a similar colour scheme, but also the actual where the colours start and end just kind of feels very reminiscent to me of Clodsire. I don't know. Point is, that's definitely Sobble's Fin. This almost doesn't feel real because it feels like something that someone would have just made as a complete parody of Pokemon. But no, yeah. It's got Sobble's Fin. That's straight up copying, guys. Cognito, again, this one looks fine. Again, it's a bird with a hat, but that's not enough to say, oh, it's definitely Honchkrow. No, this looks fine. It's also actually I quite like this design. The kind of Plague Doctor look it's got going. I quite like that. Obviously, we have a Plague Doctor Pokemon. Looks nothing like this. So, yeah, this is fine. Leespunk. Nothing here really gives me the vibe of anything that I've ever seen in Pokemon. It's just kind of a dragon wearing a hoodie. It seems to be anyway. It kind of looks more like Captain Marvel than anything. Like Captain Marvel in Endgame. Actually, no, not even Captain Marvel. It looks like Miss Marvel in her Captain Marvel cosplay. With the bit on the yellow bit on the head. But yeah. This feels original to me. Loop Moon also feels original. I haven't really seen anything that looks like this. It's pretty cool, but also definitely not based on a Pokemon. At least not that I can see. I'm sure someone would probably be able to figure something out. But no, I think this one's original. Galeclaw. Galeclaw. It's going to sound weird, but especially the colour scheme kind of reminds me of Ivlet from Pets Dogs 2. Especially with the colour scheme and the eyebrows. Ivlet has some very specific eyebrows, but that's definitely not what this is based on. It's got kind of it kind of looks like the Great Eagle from Angry Birds, but maybe that's just because it's an eagle, I guess. Yeah, again, original. Okay, I don't care what anyone says. I'm not having it. That is meant to be Decidueye. It's they're not even fun. Like, the color scheme is very, very similar, but it also just like the headpiece, like, just it looks like what Decidueye has on its head. Well, not necessarily what it has on its head, but it does. It looks like it's got Decidueye's feathers on its head. It looks like it's got Decidueye's cape. This feels so much like Decidueye. It's ridiculous. I find it quite funny. The trivia section on the wiki says this PAL may be a combined parody of the Pokemon Decidueye and Gallade. And I hate to break it to you, but I think it goes beyond parody. Yeah, because I think one of the issues with the parody argument is that there's not really much that the designs themselves are parodying. Like, it's not like it's not like it's taking Decidueye's design and trying to do something with it. It's like to say something about Decidueye. No, it's just using a design that looks very similar to Decidueye. So the parody argument doesn't really work for me. I have seen Gory Rat. I'm gonna be honest, it looks original to me again. The only thing that I think there's a Temtem again. There's a Temtem that it kind of looks like to me. I can't remember its name though. But I originally thought Thwacky, but they don't actually look that similar in reality. Yeah, even if there was something that it looks similar to, this looks to me quite original. And then we have Beegard. I mean, it other than being a bee, there's nothing really that I can see that's similar to Pokemon. So yeah, I'd be willing to let this one, slide. Then we have Elizabeth, and I mean, other than being slightly culturally insensitive, it's again, it's doing the same Queen Bee thing as Vespiquen, but like again, Pokemon didn't invent Queen Bees, so that's definitely not like... It doesn't look like Vespiquen is what I'm trying to get at. It's just a Queen Bee. Grintail is an interesting one because realistically this is possibly the most egregious, like, just straight up use of Pokemon features that I have seen anyway. Even worse than Esper. And that's because, my god, that is Galarian Meowth's face. That's not even like an exaggeration. It's not like, oh, it looks like... No, that is its face. Like, the eyes are exactly the same. The mouth is exactly the same. That can't be a coincidence. And you know what? It doesn't even look like it fits on the body. It just looks so out of place. So, like... I don't know, it's just so baffling to me that they did this. Why wouldn't they just give it a unique face? I don't get it. I also want to kind of point out that it also seems to have very similar ears to Skitty. So, and the body shape you could kind of say is like Perugly. I'm not sure that there's enough there to say that, but it does feel like an amalgamation of a bunch of cat Pokemon, but without actually making itself feel distinct. Swede looks original. I can kind of see that it could have Lucario's ears. I'm going to be honest. The ears do look like Lucario's ears. But, like... and actually, I think what makes them look more like Lucario's ears is the fact that the colour just completely clashes with the rest of it. But, like... again, there's not, I don't think, enough there to say, oh, yeah, they definitely just took Lucario's ears and put it on there. I think it's worth noting, I don't necessarily think that's what's happened, or it might have been what's happened actually, but I don't think that that's a conclusion that, you can easily come to. It's just a bit of a weird design, I guess. And then you have Sweeper, which basically looks like the same thing. Again, it's got those Lucario ears. Otherwise, yeah, there's not really much I can say about this one. It basically looks the same, actually. Chillette looks like something. It's kind of got fur its body shape. So I could definitely see them having used that. Otherwise, I can't really spot where any other element could have come from. So other than potentially having a body shape that feels just a bit too similar to Furret, there's not really much to talk about here. Univolt, again, looks more to me like a Temtem. I am starting to wonder if potentially it wasn't just Pokemon that they took their designs from, and that maybe they looked at other franchises. There's a Temtem that has a similar colour scheme. I think it's a deer one. I can't remember its name exactly. But yeah, so other than that, again, there's not really much to say here. It's kind of just an electric unicorn, which, again, unique concept, I think. It's just whether or not that there was some sort of inspiration from outside. I think that Temtem actually has something like what the yellow bits above the hooves as well. I think people are very focused on the idea that it's Pokemon that's been copied here, and I think it is actually worth noting that it might not have just been Pokemon. But again, I can't really verify that. It looks, fairly unique otherwise. So yeah, Foxicle gives me some pretty blatant Alolan Ninetales vibes, which I guess comes as a natural part of if you were designing a fox creature that was also ice type, maybe you would come to a similar place. But I don't know, the multiple tails as well. I mean, not that Alolan Ninetales actually has that actually, but still, I'm just like, especially like looking at a close-up picture. Sure, I can kind of see the differences, but the a smaller picture, just it looks to me like I'm looking at Alolan Ninetales or something like that. Pirin doesn't look like anything I can think of. Yeah, fairly original, fairly cool design actually. I quite like it. Yeah, doesn't seem to me like there's anything here that it's inspired by. So yeah, pretty cool design. Raindrix definitely looks original to me, and honestly, another really cool design. The antlers especially are awesome. Yeah, again, this is the frustrating thing. I wish there weren't so many blatant copies, because I would love to see some of these designs, more. If they had done stuff like this, what a game they would have had. Now, obviously the first instinct here is Rayhound. It's an electric dog. That must be Boltund. Obviously, like, just being an electric dog isn't going to, inspire that kind of. It shouldn't inspire that kind of comparison straight away. But there are a couple of things. Probably the most obvious is the face. It looks like Lucario's face. The ears look like Lucario's ears. The markings look very similar to Lucario's, especially with kind of splitting the head into two parts. The eyes look like Lucario's eyes. That looks like they've taken Lucario's head and put it on a quadruped. But the thing that might go slightly amiss is actually, if you look towards the back, that's Raichu's tail. Not exactly, obviously. It has got like an extra spike on it, but like, come on. That's Raichu's tail. They've definitely used Raichu's tail there. It's not even just, having an electric bolt on the tail. That's fine. It's the fact that it's an electric bolt, like, connected to a really thin, almost wire-like, main bulk of the tail. It's something that I don't think I've ever seen in anything other than Raichu, and it's just a bit suspect to see it here. Now, this is kind of the point where I have to say that the Palworld wiki sucks, because this was down on the list as Kisu, and that's not its name. Its name is Kitsu. There also wasn't a link to its page on that list, so that's weird. But this is what it looks like, Kitsu, and I mean, other than looking like a little bit like Amaritaratusu, whatever the name of that wolf thing is from Akami, which obviously that's based on something pre-existing anyway. Yeah, this feels original. Yeah, decent design. I quite like it. Okay, so the thing with Dazzy is that you definitely have a kind of similar thing to, you know, Thunderous, Landorus, you know, where it's kind of sitting in this cloud thing. But obviously, that isn't again something that Pokemon invented. Heck, Lakitu does that from Mario. So that's by the by. It looks more like a cartoon character to me than a creature in one of these kinds of games, but I can't say that it's plagiarism, so there is that. Lunaris kind of gives me Mewtwo vibes, I'm going to be honest. Mostly in the head. But I don't think that's really enough. It does just enough for me to... Well, no. It does look mostly unique. It's just that head shape with the eyes and everything, the very big forehead, kind of feels reminiscent of Mewtwo. I could imagine this having been obtained from using Mewtwo in some sort of AI fusion generator thing. I could imagine I could imagine that. But it is fairly original, honestly. So, you know, that's that, I guess. So, Dinosom is one of the ones I have heard a lot of people talking about, and they've been saying that it is 100% definitely Meganium mixed with Lilligant. And I don't agree. Sure, that is definitely Meganium's head. 100%. Head and face, Meganium. Lilligant, though, the flower doesn't look quite the same to me. I could say, yeah, that is, you know, there's some plausible deniability there. You could say, okay, that might not be Lilligant's flower, okay. But what I don't think you can deny is that is definitely Gudra's body. Like, the body shape looks near identical to me, right down to you know the curl on the tail. But even more egregiously to me is the kind of tentacle things on the back of the head, which is something that feels fairly specific to Gudra, and yet here it is. Like I don't know how you can't see Gudra in this one. This is 100% Gudra. Surfent, actually, yeah, again looks unique. Can't think of what it reminds me of, but I don't. I think maybe Barrascuda is the closest thing I can think of, like in terms of the face. But like that's definitely not what they've used here. If they've used anything, I don't think they have. I think this one's just an originally designed PAL. Now, Mare looks very, very cool, and I can't think of what it might be that it could, you know, be based on. I mean, obviously, like Chandelure with the blue flames, but again, blue flames weren't invented by Pokemon. Yeah, it looks very, very, very original to me, and I like this. I really like this design. This would be one I'd consider having on my team if I, you know, actually wanted to play the game, which I don't. Digtoise looks more like a Spiny from Mario than anything, I'm going to be honest. It's got very Bowser vibes, actually. You could maybe make a case for it having a Dreadnought face, but I don't think there's much in that. It just seems like it's based on a snapping turtle. I do think that this is another thing that kind of makes me feel like, okay, they might not just be drawing from Pokemon, because the shell looks very much like a Spidey to me. But that, I guess, isn't really conclusive, so yeah. Tombat's kind of cool. I'm gonna be honest. It does kind of give me vibes of, I'm not sure. I think it's kind of a mix in the face. It is mainly Incineroar and Chestnut are really what I'm kind of thinking. Actually, I think Meowscarada as well. Actually, there's a bit of Meowscarada in the body as well. I could see where there could potentially be a lot of different origins that were taken from Pokemon, but overall it actually manages to still feel unique. Although it does kind of, in some ways, remind me of some Pokemon. So, you know. Lavender is Salazzle. Everyone said it. It's got Salazzle's face. It's got Salazzle's face. That's it. It's a lizard of some sort. It's got Salazzle's face. The thing is, Salazzle is already a feminine looking Pokemon. This just kind of dials up the femininity. It's got a very similar body shape. It's got the same face. Like, there's a lot here that, you know, they definitely knew what they were doing with this one. Flambell looks unique. I'm kind of getting Sprixie vibes from Super Mario 3D World, but yeah, that it doesn't look like any Pokemon I can think of, or anything else other than a Sprixie. So yeah, Vanworm again feels fairly original. I could like see how maybe there's like some sort of Yveltal inspiration there, but there's just not much there to really go by, I think. Yeah, I wouldn't. Someone else might be able to spot something that looks similar, but I can't here. Bushy looks original at first, but then like I start to get more wild vibes, and like the legs definitely, but then that could just be similar origin. I think it's the face that does it for me. Something in that face looks very familiar, and I think it's more wild. And there might be something else as well. I'm not sure, but this definitely doesn't. In terms of the face, doesn't look like it's something that is completely original. Beacon looks fine, fairly generic. I'm going to be honest, but like, like, I can't even really tell what it's supposed to be other than just Big Bird, and we've had Big Bird already in this game. But yeah, there's nothing really here that I could point to as being a specific inspiration. I immediately thought of Galarian Zapdos here, and the colour scheme is near identical. It has a different body shape, but like the spiky black and orange of Galarian Zapdos is just, you can see it here. You can definitely see it here. The one thing that really breaks it up is the blue eye. That's the one thing that kind of makes me think, oh, is it not? But really, this definitely feels like it was based in some part on Galarian Zapdos. You know, right down to even just the black feet. You know, it's just, there's so many elements here that just really line up with Galarian Zapdos. Let's talk about Cattress. You could say it just looks like some sort of, you know, fox, you know, magician fox, and that's fine. But I can't help feeling like that hat is heavily based on Miss Magius's hat. Which, I mean, again, makes sense. They're both based on witches, but it just feels a little bit too close for me. I don't know. I don't know. Something about it just really feels like it's copying Miss Magius. I've heard people comparing Wixen to Braixen, but the most part, I think it's hard to see that. But the face, yeah, the face does definitely kind of look like it to me. Again, I think this seems to be quite similar to Cattress. And so the hat again probably is also very much based on the Miss Magius hat. Although this looks less like it. I think it's got less like tufts on it, kind of thing. But yeah, I think, and also actually the ears, because of the fact that that's, you know, Fennec Fox ears. It's, I mean, there is shared origin, and then there's making a Fennec Fox that's also a magician or witch or wizard or whatever. Which is, like, that's two concepts which don't tend to go together, you know what I'm saying? And it's just it's a bit much for me to be coincidence, you know? Especially considering a Fennec Fox is a very specific type of fox. The fire here as well is, yeah, this does feel actually, the more that I think about it, the more it definitely does look like they've kind of used Braixen as a base. This is one of the ones that most people have been talking about, Birdash, and that's because it's basically Cinderace. It's got very, very similar feet. It's got very, very similar arms. It's got very, very similar just general body shape. It looks like it's wearing shorts, which is something that Cinderace had because of the fact it's based on a football player, and that's something that football players wear, and this copies that. Okay, interesting. Very similar ears, very similar. Well, not the tail. I also have seen comparisons that actually point out that the kind of leaves around the neck look very similar to Hisuian Arcanine, and like again, if we're thinking about this in terms of is it fusions, like yeah, this looks like it is a fusion of a few different elements. Violet is fine. Can't see anything particularly that would be a shared origin, or not shared origin, but copy essentially. Decent design, but I can't see anything that is a shared origin. Cyberlix, I like the look of actually. I mean, my first instinct was Frostmoth, but it really doesn't look anything like Frostmoth. It doesn't really look anything like anything. This feels very unique. You could maybe make a case actually that the bits on the top of the head kind of look like Glaceon's, the bits that hang down Glaceon. Maybe. Otherwise, it feels fairly unique. Elphadran doesn't look like anything I can think of. Best I could do was, like, the body shape looks kind of like Charizard. It's also a fairly generic shape, I think, so I don't think there's much really here that I can point to. Kelpsy could have some origins with maybe Dratini for the face, but I think it's actually a bit too generic for there to be anything conclusive here, honestly. Azorobe seems to borrow heavily from Primarina. It's a little bit, it's kind of one of those very egregious ones. I don't know, the very elegant design, the colour scheme, just the general feminine, I don't know. It's one of those things where you can point out the differences, but it doesn't change the fact that there are a lot of similarities. Cryolinks I really like. I can't, like, the closest I could come is Drapion with the body shape, but like, that's a heck of a stretch if I'm doing that. But I actually really like this design. This might be one of my favourite ones that I've seen so far. It's really, really cool. The only thing actually that I'm thinking of is that marking on its head, is that like the same one that's on this Incineroar's chest? It might be, I don't know, but that's, you know, that, I mean, notable definitely if that is the case, but other than that, really cool design. I really like this. I could see with Blaze House some Arcanine inspirations, but realistically this feels like they started with the idea of let's make a Hellhound pal, and then went from there without copying, and they could have, because there is a Hellhound Pokemon. So yeah, this one I would actually say maybe the face feels a bit Arcanine, but I actually think this seems fairly original to me. Then we have Relaxaurus. So with Relaxaurus, again, I could see some potential Goodra inspirations, and I could definitely see some Goodra. The Goodra one is the one I see more at. Not Goodra, sorry. Did I say Goodra the first time? Wait, Quagsire is what I mean, sorry. The colour scheme, the general body shape, definitely not conclusive though. So I think Goodra and Quagsire, definitely there could be, but in reality, this seems to be the one that is the mascot. And in that case, I actually feel like maybe it's one that they designed specifically. So yeah, I think that this one seems fairly original to me, but I wouldn't necessarily rule out the Quagsire and Goodra inspirations. Broncherry definitely feels like it's Meganium. The fact that it is a grass Brontosaurus that has a pink flower around its neck, I mean, like that is an awfully specific design to just, you know, happen to come up with, without any knowledge of the, you know, one of the Pokemon from the second ever Pokemon game. Like, there's no way that they didn't know that this was going to draw comparisons to Meganium. Or, you know, they knew that they had a Pokemon or a pal here that looked like a Pokemon. There's no way they didn't. I can't really pinpoint anything on Petalia, actually. It does just generally look like a generically female and grass type pal, really. We've got plenty of Pokemon like that. I don't think it looks like any of them specifically, though. Reptyro, again, feels very original. The feet look familiar to me. That kind of two-toed thing. I think there might be a Pokemon that uses those feet, but it's not enough. It's not a lot, really. So yeah, I can't really say that this one is copying anything specific. Kingpaca, again, just feels like an alpaca, but like they've, you know, given it a little extra flair. The thing is, I mean, it does have that Empoleon head crest, which I could definitely see a potentially being a copycat move, but actually, if you were to ask me whether I think that is the case, I don't think so, because it's a trident, and a trident is, I mean, it's like Poseidon's, Neptune's, you know, royal staff thing. It's a trident. So it is something that naturally has kingly connotations, usually with things that are based around water, which this isn't, which is a little more suspect, and the fact it's on the face is also a little more suspect. But if I'm honest, I don't believe that this was copied. I think that actually, this, even if they did kind of use that idea after having seen Empoleon, I think actually that's more inspiration than anything. I don't think that that's a copied design element as such. Mamorest is an elephant, and that's about it. Doesn't look like Copperager, doesn't look like Donphan, doesn't really look like any other elephant Pokemon. It feels fairly unique to me. Wumpo is so close. So close to being a great design that anyone could get behind. But the eyes, guys, it's Tangrowth. It just uses Tangrowth's eyes, and like once you see it like that, I mean, you can really see that. Okay, yeah, they based this one from Tangrowth, specifically Tangrowth, not Tangela, because the body shape is more similar to Tangrowth. And you can imagine if you put this in an AI image, you know, generator, and said mix this with I don't know, maybe, I don't know, Berserker, you would get something similar to this. Yeah, I don't think that there's... It's definitely Tangrowth's eyes. It's just very specific. I don't know. So Warsect does definitely feel kind of like Heracross to me. Specifically Mega Heracross. But I think that actually exposes why this was probably... Or you know, I could definitely see it being an original design. And that's because it's just based on the same thing. Especially when it comes to Mega Heracross, it actually plays the inspiration quite straight. So something else that's based on the same thing, I actually think is going to look very similar. So there's not really enough here to be able to say they copied. I don't think they did here. Fenglope is one of the first ones that I saw, and it's just like, if it basically looks like a very skinny Cobalion. That's what it looks like. The colour scheme is near identical, really. Right up to the antlers, which is just, I don't know, baffling. Why on earth would they not change the colours? I don't understand this. Like, you're making it so obvious that this is a copy when you do that, when you use the same colour scheme. It has its elements that diverge from Cobalion, don't get me wrong, but not enough to stop people from being able to see that actually, yes, Cobalion definitely went into the design of this. Velbat has some serious Absol inspirations here. Specifically the face. I mean, you've got like the white fur with a black kind of skin, I guess it is. Probably not skin, but you know what I'm saying. And the single black horn coming from it. That's not the only one that I can see though, because I can definitely see Darkrai in this, especially the almost the kind of skirt thing. That's very Darkrai. The wisp on the head, you could also say, is very similar to Darkrai, and it's got a Darkrai color scheme. It's like the color scheme is a mixture of Absol and Darkrai, with a little bit of gold mixed in there as well. So yeah, this one really just feels like a fusion of Absol and Darkrai. Quiver definitely gives off some serious Dragonite vibes, but to its credit, that's just because they are both very much like chubby friendly dragons, and like again, you could just look at kind of the Puff the Magic Dragon and think, okay, yeah, that's kind of where both of them have gone with it. I don't think this one is one that was based on Dragonite. It's got the same vibe, but it doesn't have the same design to me. Now, Blazamut is very cool, very awesome, but unfortunately, I think it just, again, is the colour scheme just really reveals that there was some definite Hisuian Arcanine inspiration here. And it's mainly the mane. The kind of... It's not a grey mane. Well, I mean, it is grey mane, but like... It's the fact that both of them almost look like they've got dirty manes. And also the orange faces, or orange, or almost red faces. Yeah, this one, again, to me, this looks like they've got Hisuian Arcanine, and there's elements of it with maybe another Pokemon, or maybe some unique elements, but even a Sky... Actually, there's a Skylander this reminds me of, and I don't know much about Skylanders, but I feel like there is a Skylander that if you fuse that Skylander with Hisuian Arcanine, I think that like this is what you would get. So yeah, very cool. I like the design. I don't buy that it wasn't partially based on other things. Hellsafire. I'll tell you what Hellsafire really reminds me of. It really reminds me, very specifically, of shiny Hisuian Braviary. Like, the colour scheme really does look like that. Now, again, I don't know that would ever have been where this originated from. But I do think it's worth noting, especially in terms of the colour scheme. And, like, the flame on the head. I don't know. It feels very Hisuian Braviary, but specifically shiny Hisuian Braviary. Astegon. Oh boy, this is definitely Zekrom. The wings definitely give Zekrom vibes. I mean, the colour scheme, obviously, is obviously not the same colour scheme as Zekrom entirely, but being mostly black really does paint a picture here. I also kinda get Duraludon vibes, especially from the body. But yeah, it feels definitely like they were going for a Zekrom type thing here. Menacing is just another one of those really frustrating ones, because at first when I see it, I'm like, okay, that looks cool. That looks really cool. Like it's like we've got Scorpion Pokemon, and there's the Scorpion and Temtem, and I like both of those designs. And this is just yet another really cool Scorpion creature design. And if it was just that, I wouldn't have any more to say, but then you look at the face, and it's Giratina's face. And, yeah, there's not really any hiding that. And it's another one of those things where it's like, okay, how on earth have they managed that? How on earth have they managed to basically copy Giratina's face in something that's completely unrelated? You know, similar colour scheme, but otherwise unrelated. And again, it kind of points towards that idea of AI generation, of the fact that they've, you know, put things in and said, okay, make this using these bases, and yeah, unfortunately the AI has just not realised don't exactly copy the face, especially when it's a very distinct face. So yeah. Now Anubis definitely feels like it's trying to fill the same niche as Lucario, but the issue is that, like, Lucario is based on Anubis the god, and this is based on Anubis the god, so they do have the same origin. And while, like, I can look at elements of it, like the ears, and think, okay, that definitely feels like they're going for a Lucario type thing, and they were definitely, they definitely did think of Lucario while they were making it, but I don't think that actually that is too bad when it's... I don't think that's too bad because of the fact that they're just making something that's based on the same thing. And it's not like it actually doesn't use a lot of the design elements of Lucario. So there's not really much that can be said here. Like they definitely wanted to invoke Lucario here, but like that's not particularly bad, especially in comparison to what else they've done here. See, I could see the argument for this being very similar to Gyarados. It does feel like it has a lot of similar design elements, and it is definitely like based on the same thing, so that could partially be why. But then I just look at things like, I don't know, the fins, the tail. It does feel very Gyarados. The segmented body, but this is a difficult one, a case to make, because they are just kind of based on the same thing, like sea serpents, and that's again not something that Pokemon invented. So as much as my instinct says that there is a partial inspiration here, especially with those long bits coming out of it, I don't know if that would like hold up really. If someone told me shut up, that is definitely not get based on Gyarados, I'm not going to fight him on it, you know, regardless of how I feel. Suzaku looks kind of weird to me, and I'm gonna be honest, in the face, something about it I just get Scizor vibes from. I think it's both the face and the body shape. I mean, the body shape is very different, but like parts of the body, like the torso specifically, the torso and the face, very much feel like Scizor to me. I mean, I could see how you could get Yveltal from like the body shape, but I think again that's a stretch. But Scizor definitely feels like there's something there of Scizor in its DNA. It's hard to explain, but I can just see it. Grisbolt, I just feel like I'm missing something. Like, it feels like there is something that this is based on, and I just can't bring it to my mind. Like the Cheshire Cat smile does feel kind of Gengar, but then it's also just a Cheshire Cat smile. So I don't know if there's... Well, I mean, there isn't really anything there that you can say, oh yeah, they're copying. In terms of like the arms, I'm getting kind of Electa vibe, but again, that just feels like a stretch. It definitely feels like this isn't unique to me, and I don't know what it would be based on. But I just feel like there's something, and I'm just missing it. But you know, it might be just that maybe it's just because I've seen it before. I think I saw it before when I heard of Palworld, so maybe that's it. I don't know. Either way, it just looks annoyingly familiar to me. Okay, Lylene. I mean, I can definitely see Gardevoir in this. It's especially the kind of the hair bit that kind of curls forward. That bit looks like just the face and the head looks very much like Gardevoir, except grass type. I don't think that there's anything specific like a grass Pokemon that I feel like this is based on. It may have just been like, again, an AI generation thing of you know, make a grass type Gardevoir. But I can't think of anything specific that it would that this would be based on in terms of the grass type element. But definitely Gardevoir. Definitely Gardevoir. Valeris seems fine. I mean, I could make Talonflame comparisons to the face, but like it's just a Firebird. Talonflame didn't invent that, so I would say this one is again probably one that is unique in my opinion. With Zerk, I've seen a lot of people point out that it has a lot of Garchomp-like elements, especially the body shape. I think that's really where I can see the comparisons end in terms of other Pokemon. It does feel fairly unique, and the Garchomp similarity, while definitely something I can see, isn't overpowering enough to kind of... It does enough, really, to still feel unique to me. Even though it probably does have a lot of Garchomp DNA in it. Shadowbeak. I mean, it's definitely got some basis in Arceus. The ring, the kind of ring around it, it just feels too much like the ring around Arceus not to have been a heavy inspiration. And also Silvally. From the neck up, it looks more like Silvally. So it does feel like a kind of a fusion of those. Yeah, I definitely feel like... I mean, it's got... Again, it's also got, like, talons on its front legs. So yeah, that's very Silvally. So yeah, this has got elements of Arceus, it's got elements of Silvally. It's... Yeah, again, I don't see any justification for this not having been, you know, just essentially being an amalgamation of those two Pokemon. I can't see anything specific in Palladius. It's definitely just seems like it's based on high fantasy centaurs, you know, with armor on in general. I mean, you could say Cellaredge, but like, again, I don't know if we will have had things that modern in the Palworld design. So yeah, I think, again, an original one, not the most original Pal. I mean, it's a fairly generic concept, really, but not copying anything specific. Necromus is kind of the same. I can kind of see more of Ceruledge in this one, actually, which is partially because of the big blades that it has. So yeah, I can also see a bit of Silvally as well in this one, specifically the head crest, but whether that is anything, I don't know. This one I would actually be more convinced could be based on Ceruledge, but again, I don't know if any of these designs would have been made after Scarlet and Violet released. So, although actually having said that, Ceruledge was revealed before the game was released, so this one actually I could definitely see having been based on Ceruledge. Yeah, tough one to call here. Frostallion seems like it could have some elements taken from other Pokemon. The plumage on the back of the head feels very Suicune. The ice on above the hooves could be Glastrier. In fact, actually, the face, I think, kind of looks like Suicune too. I'm not sure if it's enough to be conclusive, but I definitely think you can see actually quite a bit of Suicune in this one. So, yeah, worth noting at least. Jetragon is one of the ones that people have really been bringing up. It's got a lot of Salamence in it, I'll say that, and Salamence is based on a jet. So, like, you can see it in the head shape, you can see it even the body shape. Yeah, I can't not see Salamence here. I've seen a few people say Latias and Latios as well. I think that's more the jet association, but Salamence definitely was what I was thinking of before. But you know, before I heard the Latios comparisons, and I definitely see it here. And that's all of them. Now I hope that it is I hope that you can see what I'm saying here. But I know a lot of people like this game and want to root for it, and I mean, it has to be said that a lot of those are just people that want to spike Pokemon, but like a lot of other people just want to enjoy the game. But I hope that I have been able to kind of at least show how a lot of these designs really do take a lot of inspiration from Pokemon, to the point where it goes beyond just inspiration at some points, or at least it seems to, and it looks like they're just copying. And the Esper comparison, the what was it called, Killamari. That one is exactly what I'm talking about, because you can imagine if you got an AI image generator to say, okay, mix Esper with a squid, or maybe it was more specific, but mix Esper with a squid. What you got there in Killamari is exactly what you would have got. It's got Esper's ears, it's got Esper's eyes, it's got Esper's colour scheme. Those things can't be coincidence. It's too specific, because it's so specific. And it's a little worrying, really. These designs do feel like they have been quote-unquote stolen, quote-unquote plagiarized, quote-unquote, generated using AI. We don't know any of this. But it isn't great if it is happening, and it does seem like it's happening, and it seems like people are supporting it. I've always held with the fact that after Dexit, after Sword and Shield came out, actually a lot of people did boycott Pokemon. And a lot of people say, well, look at the sales of Pokemon. It's been doing so well in terms of sales, and it has. It's, highest sales it's had for a long time. But to that, I would always say, Pokemon isn't breaking records, and every other franchise is. You think about it, Mario Kart, Zelda, Kirby, Splatoon, Metroid, I think WarioWare, basically any Nintendo franchise that you can think of has broken its all-time record. Its all-time sale record has been broken on the Switch. And the only example I can think that hasn't done that is Wii Sports, a game that no one liked. I mean Nintendo Switch Sports there, but the point is, I think that when people say the boycotts didn't work, I actually think that there was always room for Pokemon to grow to the point where it beats its previous sales record. I don't know why Pokemon of all franchises would be the one that couldn't do that when, Animal Crossing and Smash have been able to do so by many times. And then something like Mario Kart, which had a higher sales record than Pokemon to start with, or I think it was around about the same actually, but either way, it has by far destroyed its sales record, and Pokemon's. And I don't get why Pokemon would be an exception to that, and I think that a lot more people were turned off by the controversy surrounding Sword and Shield than people are willing to admit. And I think something like Palworld definitely demonstrates that, because last I saw, 3 million people bought the game. And most of the people buying the game are people that are disillusioned with Pokemon. Because most of the people that like Pokemon don't want to play the game because it seems to be plagiarizing Pokemon. And so that has to make you wonder, if that's 3 million people, and that's 3 million people in 40 days, by the way. 40 hours, sorry. 40 hours. 3 million people in 40 hours are buying this game, and a lot of them are probably because they're disillusioned with Pokemon, and a lot of them probably didn't buy Pokemon. And you might be thinking that I'm gearing up to saying, oh, well, Pokemon needs to do better, and it does, frankly. I love the Pokemon games that we've got on Switch. I do love them, but I do think that they can be better. I do think they should be better. But I also think that it's notable that something like this, something like Palworld, actually legitimately seems like it's taking a significant portion of profit from Game Freak and Nintendo. Is that okay? I don't think so, because as much as, yeah, they're big corporations, they're not going to be hard up for money. It's another company that is using Pokemon's assets, or not even their assets, but it's using Pokemon's content, Pokemon's material, and using that in order to make a profit, and not only that, to take profit away from Game Freak and Nintendo. Whether you want to support big corporations is one thing. I personally don't think it matters whether it's a big corporation or not. I think that there's a lot of artists in Pokemon who deserve to have their work honoured to the fullest extent, and that includes in terms of getting the high sales and the money that comes with it. But I also think that if we allow something like this slide for a, against a big developer, it'll start happening to smaller ones. And as I said, a lot of these apparently also have a lot of similarities to some Fakemon that have been made. Small creators potentially are having their content, their work, their art stolen because, well, someone wants to make a quick buck. And then when I start to see things that look like they might be based on Temtem as well, Temtem, a game made by a much smaller developer than Nintendo, and a game that has not sold, as far as I'm aware, as much anywhere near as Palworld has already sold. And I'm thinking, is it only Nintendo and Game Freak that are going to get screwed over by something like this? Now, a lot of people will say, well, we just want to enjoy a fun game. And okay, but that doesn't mean it's right for this game to exist in the way that it does. And I think people have to acknowledge that. And I think that people have to acknowledge that actually something probably has to be done about this. And I think it will be, because I can't see Nintendo and Game Freak looking at this and looking at all the evidence and thinking that, there's nothing that they can do or that there's nothing that they want to do. They go after much smaller projects that are doing much more harmless stuff. And in reality, I think that this is something that they will take issue with. And I think that they should. And I think that something should be done about it. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on all of the Pals in Palworld. I think that there's some really promising stuff here, some really cool stuff. And it is a shame that it is marred by the fact that it is just doing something that feels so unethical. Yeah, that's basically all I had to say about it. Yeah, I will see you in the next one.